today we start our first session. And among the 14 books that I've written, the first book that I'm going to cover, and actually my first book, the bestseller book, is yes, it's Corporate Chanakya. I'm sure all of you must have seen this somewhere or the book. And the 10th year is the 10th year that actually Corporate Chanakya is still in the best-selling list. But before we go into the books that I've written, let me go to look at the journey of Chanakya. So today, I'll be doing three things. Number one is I'm going to actually explain Chanakya, who Chanakya was, what did he do, the life story of Chanakya, the history part of it. Secondly, I'm actually going to talk about the book that he has written called Kautilya's Arthashastra, and the other book that he wrote called as Chanakya Niti. These are two amazing works that is left behind, and even today our generation has been benefited by this particular two books of Chanakya. So friends, let me start with the first part today to understand Chanakya. I'm sure all of you and each one of you actually must have read about Chanakya, seen about Chanakya, heard about Chanakya. Like any other person, many years ago when I was very young, during my college days, in Doordarshan, we used to have these three very famous serials, and they are currently going on because of the lockout period. The first one is Ramayana, the second is Mahabharata, and a part of the trilogy was Chanakya. So I got introduced to Chanakya because of the story and the television serial, amazing serial made by Dr. Chandragupta Maurya. That was my first introduction. Later on, I started reading a lot of books about him. I went to Kerala, where I studied in the Chinmay International Foundation. Swami Advayananji, Swami Tejamananji, my teachers, they blessed me. So many acharyas of Chinmay Mission. But specifically, Dr. Gangadharan Nair, who was then the Dean of Adi Shankaracharya Sanskrit University, actually helped me. And later on, Dr. Shubhda Joshi from the University of Mumbai became my PhD guide when I did my PhD in the subject of Chanakya. Now, what I'm going to do to introduce Chanakya, I'm going to look at two parts of it. Number one is the history part of it. I'm not a historian. So let me be very clear on this. I'm not a historian. If you ask me the questions about what is right and wrong, I may just give you my perspective because there are so many versions of Chanakya's life and I like every version. It's not about right or wrong. Today I'm going to actually talk about the story of Chanakya. And then, of course, I'm going to talk about my subject of research, which is Arthashastra. And of course, we'll talk about our book that is Corporate Chanakya. Chanakya, what a name. It's an inspiration to actually even listen to the name, and it inspires us to some extent that everybody wants to be a Chanakya, everybody wants to understand Chanakya. So who was Chanakya? Chanakya was born in India in the 3rd century BC. Roughly 2,400 years ago, he was born in India, and we're very proud to actually his legacy. In fact, Dr. Gangadharan Nair used to tell us that inside each one of us there is a Chanakya. We've been very fortunate that there is a Chanakya inside us, but he used to say that we'll have to actually bring him out. So the strategies that that is what exactly we're trying to bring out in this particular live sessions. The first thing is basically Chanakya was born in the 3rd century BC, 4th century BC, that particular era, 2,400 years ago, and he was a part of the Magad kingdom. Then the capital was Patliputra. Today we call it the modern day Patna in Bihar. There are some historians who claim that he came from south and he came from Kerala and then he migrated. I'm not sure about it, even though there are various versions of it. So definitely his life was around Magad, modern day Bihar, and Patliputra, modern day Patna. He was known by three names: Vishnugupta, Kautilya, and Chanakya. All three are the name of the same person. How did he get these names? First of all, Vishnugupta was his name that was given to him. The second was Kautilya. Kautilya because he wrote the Kautilya's Arthashastra. But the interesting part is that Chanakya was his pet name because his father, his name was Chanak. As they say in Hindi, Chanakya Putra Chanakya. The son of Chanak is actually known as Chanakya. So friends, if you look at the story of Chanakya, it's an amazing story where there is so many things connected to his childhood. In fact, we call the little Chanakya as Chatur Chanakya. I've written a book also on that, and very soon you'll be seeing Chatur Chanakya also part of some movies. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So right from the time Chanakya was a young boy, His father was Chanak. He was very smart. He was very strategic thinker, but he was called at that particular time by his friends as Vishnugupta. Chanakya's father, that is Chanak, he actually was an advisor to Dhananand, then the king of Magad, powerful kingdom of that particular times in India. Unfortunately, the ninth king of Magad, of the Nanda dynasty, the ninth king of the Nanda dynasty was called as Dhananand. Dhananand, unfortunately, was not a very great king. I mean, good governance was his priority. And of course, his father used to advise him, but unfortunately, that advices were not taken very seriously. So there was a public appraising that was done by father. Uh, Unfortunately, in the whole theory, it is said the plot that he made, his father himself killed. So Dhananand actually killed Chanakya's father, Chanak. And the friends of Chanakya's father, that is Chanak's friends, made sure that the little child, that is Chanakya, is very safe. And therefore, they make him run away from Patliputra and they tell him to go to Takshashila. Takshashila is a place where during those days they were, the University of Takshashila. And of course, Nalanda Takshashila, the story all of you must have heard. So he goes to Takshashila and there he starts studying the Arthashastra, one of the best universities. And it was not difficult for Chanakya to actually get admission over there because, as you know, he's already a student of a great thinker, a teacher. His father also was teaching Arthashastra. And Chanakya got an admission very easily. But remember one thing, friends, getting an admission because of your parents or because of your contacts doesn't prove that you're a good student. Here is the words. Just because you got an admission into a good university doesn't make you a good student. You have to work very hard and prove your capabilities as a good student. And of course, Chanakya did that. Chanakya was a brilliant student. He understood what his teachers were telling. He was very tuned with them. He actually started, learning it so fast. Very fortunately, of course, he had it genetically because of his father. But what also happened parallelly was that he studied and he read many other Arthashastras that were existing. And in India, before Chanakya, also there was a parampara of Arthashastra. There's a tradition of great scholars of Arthashastra, and Chanakya studied everything. Of course, it said that he became a teacher himself. You must have seen in the modern day colleges also. There are a lot of people who actually, study and then become professors or teachers in those respective schools or colleges. I've seen so many schools like that. And I've been also part of such an institution where I studied in the Bombay University, did my PhD, and thanks to Dr. Shraddha Joshi Madam and the whole philosophy department teachers and all the vice chancellors that actually became a teacher over there. Okay, so Chanakya becomes a teacher in Patliputra, and then as everything is going on quite okay, suddenly he's been called back to Magad. So Chanakya's father's friends, the Acharya, the other teachers, call him back and say, come back. Now, enough of all learning and teaching. Now it's time for you to actually become the Chanakya and do something for the country. The little young boy that had left Patliputra comes back to Patliputra as a scholar of Arthashastra. Situations hadn't changed much. The country was facing the same problems. The governance wasn't bad, but luckily Magad had some good people who were great administrators. One of them is Amartya Rakshas. If you look at the Chanakya serial, very soon it's going to come in Doordarshan, so please watch it. Amartya Rakshas was a brilliant advisor, so they were good advisors. So even though Dhananand wasn't a great king, there were some good people who were running the kingdom. So Chanakya actually came back but did not see much. But there are two problems. Number one, Magad and the whole of India, the Bharat Varsha, required somebody who can be a great leader to lead the whole kingdom called Bharat. At that time, it was not a united country, it was 16 regional kingdoms. Then Chanakya actually had to play a role. At the same time, when he was looking at probably solving the leadership problem or the crisis that was going on, simultaneously there was an external threat that India went through. Probably the first international attack that India had, and that was Alexander was on his way to conquer the world. Yes, we had many fights within India. So if you look at Rama and Mahabharata, they're all within the boundaries of India, or maximum, Ravan was in Sri Lanka. But more or less, they're all part of the same culture. For the first time, we actually see an international invader coming in and trying to conquer India. And Alexander was a very smart, energetic, inspirational leader. And he had almost conquered half of the world, and he was on the borders of India. Uh, Unfortunately, uh, the king is not bigger than the kingmaker. So his strategy was, divide and rule to, take over the country in his own methods. But then there was Chanakya who said, no, I will not allow this. So he planned a strategy. See, friends, understand this thing that Chanakya already had a very, very good theoretical base. It's important to know that when you study and when we go to the world, suppose you are done a medical profession as a doctor or an MBA or whatever, So those are theory. Nothing wrong. Theory is very, 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 very important. But if you don't apply it practically, all your theories are waste. So if you've got A grades and first ranks in your medical colleges, but when you practice medicine as a doctor, you need to apply it. Same thing goes with Chanakya. He had the theories that he had studied and taught also, but now he had to apply. He made a lot of plans around it, and the best part is that he was a person who made theory into practice. I don't want to get into the long story because you have to study it yourself, watch the serial, read a lot of books, and there are quite a few information available over there. But the whole crux of the matter is that he defeated Alexander, and there are a lot of techniques, Samadana, Danda, Veda. We say, that Dushman ka Dushman, dost, enemies are friends. So the Mandala theory. So he applied a lot of strategies. Probably in the next 14 days, I will cover a little bit of the stories of Chanakya also from time to time. But as he was defeating Alexander, he also required to create his own army, and not necessarily all the people, the 16 regional kingdoms that India was a part of. Not everybody supported him. He actually went to Dhananand and said, okay, please support me in protecting our country. But Dhananand did not have that particular vision. And the very famous story about him taking an oath, Shikha, he pulls out and says, I will never actually tie the Shikha till, I dethrone you. And there's a lot of story around it. So Chanakya says, it's okay, you don't support me, but I'm not going to go give back on my particular dream and ambition of making the whole country safe and secured. So friends, it is very, very important to know that number one is that nobody supports you. It's okay, but never, ever, ever, ever leave your dreams and vision unfulfilled. You have to make sure that come what may, you will win the game of the thrones, as they say. Chanakya was in the Game of Thrones. So power that he had was not the military power. He was not a king. He did not have an army. He was only requesting all the kings. But he had the power of the intellect. He had strategy. He had vision. If you have strategy, you have vision, you have willpower, and most important, if you have a spiritual base, adhyatmic shakti as they call it, you can achieve anything in this particular world. So Chanakya did a lot of his strategies and, of course, defeated Alexander. But during that process, he actually selected a very young, dynamic, smart boy to actually govern India, and his name is Chandragupta Maurya. It is said that Chandragupta Maurya comes from a very, very ordinary background. There are two versions to it. My very dear friend Manoj Joshi, if you see his drama on Chanakya, I'm sure many of you must have seen it. But Manoj Joshi actually has made a drama on Chanakya. In that, the version says that he was actually part of the Nanda dynasty, but not directly. It was a Dasi Putra. So again, as I told you, I'm not a historian, but there is a connection of Chandragupta Maurya coming from very ordinary backgrounds. One story goes that they were actually from a family of peacock catchers. So that's how the Maurya, more that's peacock. There are still the traditional professionals where they would hunt the peacock and they'll take off that feather of the peacock and sell it. So probably that's how the name Chandragupta Maurya comes. And he was a very young, dynamic boy. When Chanakya was searching around, he saw this boy, playing games with the other friends of his village, and he was giving judgments. And Chanakya understood one thing: taking judgments and giving judgments is the good quality of leadership. So he found leadership qualities in Chandragupta Maurya. And he selected him, trained him, he made a whole army around him, and finally he made him the king of Akhanda Bharat. And that's why Chanakya is also called as a kingmaker. So you see the whole life of Chanakya, right from going from Magad and Patliputra to Takshashila, coming back, defeating Alexander, dethroning Dhananand, and of course making Chandragupta Maurya the king. And here we have this very fantastic example of a Guru Sishya Parampara. And we always give examples, of combinations of Guru Sishyas. And the best combination that we've always heard about is, Chanakya and Chandragupta. There are various other combinations. We talk about even, Shiva and Ram stories. And of course, the very famous Bhagavad Gita about, Sri Krishna actually being a guru to Arjuna in the battlefield. So there are a lot of versions to it. So friends, there is a story part of Chanakya which I want to introduce. Please read books. There are a lot of videos available if you just go to YouTube. Not only videos that are produced in television serials, but I can see a lot of young boys and girls actually creating small videos and posting it. And you'll also see a lot of videos on Chanakya Niti and all that stuff. Don't worry whether it's right or wrong. A lot of people ask me, is this quote given by Chanakya really true? Is it authentic? I say, okay, let's verify that later on. At least get interested, because before you know what is right, at least you should know many things. So I would say, the whole internet world and a lot of bookshops is floating and flooding with information about Chanakya. As I told you in the beginning stage, don't worry about what is right and wrong. Please read it. Later on we can verify. You can come to me and I'll tell you what is right and wrong. But that's not the point. The point is that I want to move away from the historical aspect of Chanakya to something which I call the knowledge part of Chanakya, and that's where my contribution comes in. So after the part we called about the life of Chanakya, we have the documentation of Chanakya. Chanakya himself is said to have written the Kautilya's Arthashastra and Chanakya Niti. Two books have been dedicated to him, and it's been told that Chanakya actually wrote these two books. So let me now start by explaining these two books. Based on these two books, that is Kautilya's Arthashastra and Chanakya Niti, I have written all my books. So that's very important. So if you want to know the original source from where Radhakrishnan Pillai actually wrote the books on Chanakya, these are the two books, Kautilya's Arthashastra and Chanakya Niti. So let me start explaining these two books in short. Chanakya Niti is a smaller version of Chanakya, and Arthashastra is a bigger version of Chanakya's knowledge. Kautilya's Arthashastra contains 6,000 sutras. I'll repeat that. It contains 6,000 sutras or formulas of how to run a kingdom. And Chanakya Niti consists of around 350 sutras. So I'm always saying that one is a movie and one is a trailer. So a lot of people talk about Chanakya Niti. It's an important book. It's also called as Niti Shastra. But the difference is that Shastra was written for the people who are governing, the administrators, the kings, the bureaucrats, while Chanakya Niti was written for the common man. So here is a great scholar who says, Raja and Praja, both of us should benefit from my knowledge and experience. So for the Rajas, it is Arthashastra, and for the Prajas, it is Chanakya Niti. That doesn't mean that if you are a Praja, you cannot read Arthashastra or want to be a Raja. Please understand this, that not only today, but traditionally, India as a country always had a democratic way of governing. I'll repeat this again and again and again. Democracy as a form of governance could be new in India, okay, because we had monarchies. But the attitude of governance has always been there in India. The common man could actually challenge the king. We see that in Ramayana, where the common man could actually challenge King Ram. No doubt about it. And we have to accept it. We see that in Mahabharata also, that one of the great kings of our country, Bharat, on whose name the whole country is called Bharat, he had many sons, but he found that not everybody was capable. Can you believe that he actually took somebody who was not his own direct son to make him the heir of Hastinapur? We all know about the story of the Pandavas and Kauravas, but please also look at this story of the great king Bharat, who actually made sure it is capability. Even if my own children don't have the capability, I will not make them king. And there is a discussion, some people go and says, why are you taking away the position of a king that is given to your children? You can choose among all these nine children that you have. And Bharat says, listen, I don't find them capable, But selecting somebody from the common man, they are also my children. Now, Praja is also my children. It should be in safe hands. So think about it. Friends, you can read Chanakya as a common man, but nobody will stop you from reading the knowledge of the kings also. In this country, knowledge is available to everybody. If you want to be a leader, you want to be king, you should study the Arthashastra. So I have done that. I have studied Chanakya also. Chanakya, of course, this is one of the books that I have written, the commentary of the original sutras of Chanakya, which I'll talk about it in the following days. But coming back, Chanakya's Arthashastra is a phenomenal book. When I first actually came across it, let me tell you very frankly, I did not understand anything because it's, and many people believe that Sanskrit is a difficult language. So was my impression. But thanks to the training that has been given in Chinmaya Mission to me, that actually I had the background of studying Sanskrit informally. Later on, I studied formally. Thanks to Sanskrit Bharati as an organization, I did my MA in Sanskrit in Mumbai, Somya College. I went on to actually study at the Chinmaya International Foundation. Now it's the Chinmaya University. And the end of it, I started understanding the beauty of the language. But as a beginner, many of you must have this particular doubt that, I don't understand Sanskrit. So, will I be able to study Arthashastra or any other Indian scriptures that is written in Sanskrit? So I will give an answer which Swami Chinmayanand used to tell. He used to tell, knowing Sanskrit to study Indian scriptures is an advantage, but not a necessity. I repeat that. Knowing Sanskrit is an advantage to study Indian scriptures, but it is not a necessity. If you don't know, doesn't matter. Whichever language you are comfortable, kings and sages and scholars in this particular country have translated everything from Ramayana to Mahabharata to Arthashastra in regional languages as well. So pick up anything and read it. Please, don't get frightened by the whole word and the language called Sanskrit. Actually, it's very simple. And we use a lot of Sanskrit terms in everyday life of ours. Only thing is we don't call it as Sanskrit. For example, when I use this word called as Raja or Praja or Rashtra, these are all actually Sanskrit words. Swami Tejamananji from Chinmaya Mission, he's been my personal mentor and guide. He used to tell something very nice. He said, Sanskrit is not a dead language. Sanskrit is not a dead language. We are dead to this language called Sanskrit. I repeat it. Sanskrit is not a dead language, but we are dead to the language called Sanskrit. So somewhere I've been fortunate by the grace of God. I tried to study it in original Sanskrit, and the 6,000 sutras are amazing. What does Arthashastra consist of? Arthashastra consists of 6,000 sutras divided into 150 chapters, 180 sections. So imagine it's a knowledge of kings, and it is said Raja Vidya iti Parama Vidya. Bhishmacharya in Mahabharata, when he is guiding Yudhishthira of how to govern a kingdom, he says Raja Vidya, knowledge of the king should include all knowledges, because you're supposed to be running a complete kingdom. You cannot take things lightly. Even if you don't know it, it's fine. You should have an expert who will guide you. So even today across the globe, you will find a prime minister having a chief scientific advisor, or what we also call national security advisor, chief economic advisor. But you can't say, I don't understand economics, I don't understand arts. You should know everything. So if you look at that was a book written by Chanakya, where he talks about 180 topics given to 150 chapters. The first chapter is my favorite. We'll be covering it later. It's called Anvikshiki Sthapana. It's an amazing thing. Anvikshik is the art of thinking, the art of strategies. And of course, it's a beautiful name of Draupadi in Mahabharata. So many things. I will not go into that detail right now, but the first topic that is covered is Vidya Samuddeshaha, the knowledge for a king, the training of a king. So if you want to be a leader, it doesn't matter whether you want to be a political leader. It can be running a business, it can be running a community, a family, or maybe a sports team. Today everything is corporate. Everything is organized, but we actually organize, coded the scientific process. But the first thing for leadership is to study leadership. Unfortunately, a lot of people become leaders without actually studying leadership. That's the problem. You cannot make someone on the throne and say, and now you lead. And that's where we are getting things wrong. A trained leader should actually sit on the chair. And after sitting on the chair, he or she has to make sure that he performs. Finally, leadership is about performance and delivery. But don't just sit and perform. Get trained, get educated, and perform. Again, I've been fortunate that in university we have a very interesting institute called the Chanakya International Institute of Leadership Studies. Dr. Sanjay Deshmukh at that particular time, the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Shuddha Joshi, my PhD, and all of them together gave me an opportunity to actually start this. And we teach leadership as a subject, 2 years Masters in Leadership program. So if somebody wants to study theoretically, it's all there. But please read the Arthashastra of Kautilya, Vidya Samuddesha, Training of a King. Later on, the other books are about bureaucracy, administration, war, law and justice, foreign policy, criminal psychology, research methodology. You just go on, and you'll be surprised. It's amazing that the kind of a knowledge that was documented. Many people call Kautilya's Arthashastra probably as the first documented constitution of any particular country. We have a modern constitution, and it's an amazing thing which our founding leaders, right from Dr. Rajendra Prasad, we have Ambedkar ji, who was the chairperson of the drafting committee. We had so much debates and discussion to form our own constitution. I request all of you to actually watch the Samvidhan, the making of the Indian constitution, which was actually produced and directed by Shyam Benegal ji. It's available on YouTube, 10 episodes. Whatever we are actually benefiting is because of the founders who made a constitution for our country post independence. So if you have a modern constitution, that doesn't mean India never had a constitution. The framework to run a country, to govern, is given in the Arthashastra. So you have military and foreign strategies, and there are so many theories in it. Saptanga model to the Mandala theory to Rajamandala Yonihi. You can go on and on. Whenever I think about Arthashastra, I get very emotional also about it sometimes. The reason being that such a vast knowledge of this country documented in this particular book, most of us not even are aware of it. And even if you're aware of it, what do actually we do about it? That's something that we should be very careful about it. Not knowing is okay, but after knowing that you have this great culture, you have this great knowledge with you, we need to study. Every student's responsibility is 3: study, apply, and spread the knowledge. That's the kartavya and the dharma of a student. First of all, adhyayan. You need to study. So if you know there is an Arthashastra, please study it. But that's not enough. Apply it in your life. I don't want just theories. That's not enough. So Guru will say, okay, you studied it. Now go and apply the wisdom that I have given you in the real life. So study, apply, and then of course prachar. You should spread it. Please understand, Indian knowledge is never to be kept with ourselves. It's not a trade secret. We need to actually get into the whole study of the Arthashastra again and again and again. So friends, it's important that we actually start studying the Arthashastra once again. So friends, here is a book that I wanted to introduce you. That is Kautilya's Arthashastra. We'll cover about it. It's divided into 15 chapters, and as I told you, 15 books, 150 chapters. But friends, what I'm going to do now is actually introduce you to my book, that is Corporate Chanakya. Corporate Chanakya. What a book. Friends, just give me a minute. Actually, there's a little bit of a pause. It's a technical problem. Let me just go one second. Okay, friends, sorry for the technical issue. Just getting it right. So I'm sure at the Facebook part, everybody is there right now. But on Instagram, we are actually trying to get it reconnected. Okay, friends. So coming back, that is Kautilya's Arthashastra for all of you. I spoke about Chanakya. I spoke about Kautilya's Arthashastra. Now, I want to speak about this book of mine. My book. And what I actually call as Corporate Chanakya. Where do I start? It is saying that the child is the father of man, and a book actually makes you an author. So, friends, I've been fortunate that once again okay, friends. 1 second. I'll get the. Okay, so if you are missing it on Instagram, that's fine. Still it's available on Facebook, and we will be able to send this a little bit later on. Okay, friends, so here is my introduction to the first book of the whole 14 book series, Corporate Chanakya. Corporate Chanakya is actually an extract of Kautilya's Arthashastra, and as the book says, it is successful management the Chanakya way. So, three things about this particular book. Number one, this book is my first book, but luckily not my last book. But as they say, the first book makes you what you are. So, if you are not read the book, I would recommend, please do read this book because, this is simplified version of Kautilya Arthashastra, especially for the corporate world. Uh, this book actually is divided into three parts. And the first part is called leadership. The second part is called management. And okay, so friends, the first part is called, once again, just give me a minute. Okay, friends, the first part is called as I'm just trying to set my Instagram right. There is some disturbance. Okay, we will look into that later, but we'll get into corporate Chanakya. Sorry for that little bit of a technical errors. Okay, uh, corporate Chanakya is divided into three parts: leadership, management, and training. It has got 175 chapters. I'll repeat it. 175 chapters, and the best part is that you can actually open the book from any page and start reading it. 175 chapters. So there is an interesting thing about how this book happened with me, and why this small chapters. Actually, this book happened as a kind of a chance in my life. Many years ago, when I was studying the Arthashastra, when I came back from Chinmaya mission, I remember I got a call from Mumbai Mirror and said, why don't you actually write something about Chanakya's application management? Mumbai Mirror is a very famous newspaper from Mumbai that gets published by the Times of India Group. And I started writing articles. And in one of the sessions, actually, I was called as a chief guest to release a book on Chanakya, which was not written by me. The Indian Merchant Chambers. I remember Nani Rupani ji had actually called me and said, you should talk about Chanakya. I spoke about Chanakya and the Arthashastra, but the people who were present over there actually thought, I am the person who's written the book. I said, no, no, no. Luckily, in that particular meeting, they were my publishers, Jco. They came and asked me, okay, you speak very well, but can you write a book on Chanakya? I said, why not? So let's focus on that. So I started writing for Mumbai Mirror. But later on, all these articles that I wrote for Mumbai Mirror actually got compiled into this book called Corporate Chanakya. Of course, it is not that same article, but we changed some things. We actually made a little bit of a minor changes around it, so it's modified. But I would say the base of my book, Corporate Chanakya, has been actually the articles that I wrote for Mumbai. Okay, now coming back to some of the sections, please read the book, but let me start with an example of each of these particular sections. So 175 chapters. The first section is on leadership, and there are many chapters around it. And it is exactly, I have taken around 250 odd sutras from the Arthashastra, the original Sanskrit, translated that into English. There were already translations available for me. We have the very famous translation by R.P. Kangle, that has been my book of reference, actually translated many of the sutras into English. So how do we apply that into the management field, into the corporate, into companies, into startups? I used to run my own business. I still have this particular company called as Atma Darshan. So this particular company was about spiritual tourism. So I actually applied a lot of these principles there, and my own personal experience, and also training a lot of companies, startups. We actually got a lot of ideas. So that's all coming over here. So let me start about leadership. Chanakya is a leadership guru. He's creating leaders, and he actually wanted everyone to think like leaders. So Chanakya has got many topics, right from selection of a leader. You need to select. Everybody can be a leader. At the same time, everybody has got his own quality. There are different types of leaders. So how do you select a leader? So political leader would be very different actually from maybe a sports leader or a business leader. So it's important that we actually understand leadership from various perspectives. So Chanakya's Arthashastra gives you, of course, how to govern a kingdom, and I spoke about how to run the company using Chanakya strategies. Okay, so that is leadership. So let me share with you some of the ideas. The first one is, the quality of a leader makes a big difference. I'll repeat it. The quality of the leader makes a difference. So it is not just I'm a son of a leader, so I should become a leader. Of course, if you have a quality of leadership, you should be given the opportunity. Look at a lot of people who have been continuingly doing well as leaders. Their parents were leaders. Their grandparents were leaders. It's good, but don't take it for granted. So develop those qualities. If you look at Raja Ram, he was born in a royal family and he was a leader. Nothing wrong in that, but quality. So quality of a leader. So if you're running a company, please make sure that you have leadership qualities. Don't just continue it by saying that my father did it and therefore I have to be a chairman of a company. It doesn't matter. If you look at the problem of leadership, it is leaders who are the problems, and it is leaders who solve all the problems. Have you read it? It is leaders who are the problems, and it is leaders who will solve all the problems. So be very, very careful about the selection of who the leaders are. So Chanakya talks about it. So coming back to companies, most of the corporates know that nobody becomes a leader overnight. It's a long process. So of course, in startups, a lot of people think I can be a leader, and you should be a leader, but experience has its own value. So how do you select leaders? So if you look at organized companies, there are selection models of leadership, and we should study that. There are processes, there are theories around this, there are softwares available, and the aptitude test being done. So first is selection. Remember one thing: selection is not enough. You should actually also go to the next level, that is train the leaders. Selected leaders, born leaders should also be trained leaders. So if you are in a company, give them small projects after training, and see the leadership qualities. So before you make them the chairman, make them director of a small project. That's good enough. And then you see the capability, and over a period of a time, build them into a leader. Chanakya said, what should be the attitude of a leader, apart from qualities of a leader? And one of the best attitudes is, as I spoke recently, is about democracy. So democracy as an attitude. So it प्रजा सुखे सुखम राज्ञः प्रजानां च हिते हितम्. प्रजा सुखे सुखम राज्ञः प्रजानां च हिते हितम्. In the happiness of the king lies the happiness. Sorry, in the happiness of the people lies the happiness of the king. Praja sukhe sukham rajya prajanam chite hitam. And what is beneficial to the people should be his own benefits. You always think about your people. So in the corporate world, you always think about your customers, your employees. It's not about me. When the crisis comes today, we are going through a lot of crisis, especially the corona problem. Companies are having their own problems, financial, this, that, but companies know it's teamwork finally. And leaders are the ones who always believe that as a captain, if the ship is sinking, I should be the last person to leave the ship. I want to save everyone. I'll take care of everyone. So, as leaders, it's a responsibility. A very famous dialogue from Spider-Man, the movie. With great power comes great responsibilities. Yes, don't take your responsibilities lightly. Leadership is about responsibilities. But don't worry, you don't have to fight it alone. Leadership is not about one person. It's also about a lot of teamwork. So there comes number two of a leader, and that's managers. So as we have a Swami or a Raja, we also have a Mantri or a Ramatya. Don't worry, it's not a lonely game. It starts as a one person, but it should not end with one person. You have to build an organization and institution. Good to great, built to last. These are two of my favorite books. Please read it. It's talk about not just an individual, but individual becoming an institution. So that's where the second part of the book Corporate Chanakya comes in, and that is management. How do you manage a kingdom? One is leadership and one is management. How do you select managers? How do you create processes, systems around it? Management is also very, very important part of today's corporate world. People go and do their MBAs, and over a period of a time, from managerial qualities, they develop leadership qualities. So many times people even think, what is there a difference between this. But as they say, management is different from leadership. And what are the basic difference? A beautiful example that is given as leadership is about climbing. Sorry, leadership. Sorry, management is about climbing the ladder fast, and leadership is asking whether the ladder is on the right wall. I'll repeat it. Leadership is about asking whether the ladder is on the right wall, because you may climb and reach the top, but you realize this is not the place where I'm supposed to be. So leadership is about questioning. It is about vision. It's about foresight. It is about creating the future, which not everybody can see. But management is about the nuts and bolts. It's about getting everything right. It's about efficiency. It's about productivity. Okay, so both are important. So again, Chanakya speaks about how to select the leaders, how to get things done from them. Again, read that chapter, corporate Chanakya on management. The third part is training. Friends, in the book Corporate Chanakya, a lot of chapters have been dedicated to training. Training is a continuous process. Don't think that training is in a one-time job. It is not. Training is a continuous job till you die. You may be the expert. You may feel that you don't require any more professional skills. That's wrong. That's where your downfall starts. The world is continuously changing. It's become disruptive. What you knew in the past and what you got you here may not be enough to take you to the next level. As the famous saying goes, what got you here may not get you there. So training is not just about one time, it's continuous, because the world changes and we also should be able to adapt ourselves to more and more changes. So friends, make sure that you get trained. So let me give you a few examples of of Arthashastra, which is there in the book Corporate Chanakya. How should you get trained? Training should be achieved through the best experts. Don't compromise on the quality of the teachers. Take the best and they will make you the best. Now the question is, the best may not be available. The best may not be available. Sorry, that's a wrong way of looking at it. Actually, the best are always available, but the student is not ready. There are stories about even Eklavya. Eklavya was not directly trained, but what a student he was. I don't want to get into the debate of why Eklavya was faced with so many problems. No. But what we are talking about, the quality of the student. So if you want to get the best training, go to the best, not even the second best. And I've seen people, they find their gurus. I found my guru in south of India. I had to go down, and I've been fortunate. Whatever be the field, keep that student quality in you. And the first thing is that, remember, the greatest teacher, the greatest guru, the greatest trainer, the coach, mentor, guide is God himself. So if you want to actually get the best knowledge, pray to God. Take his blessings and say, oh God, knowledge is yours. Please send me a teacher. And he will. So Chanakya says that, learn from the best, not even the second. There's a very famous story about a person. His son was learning flute, and they had to move from one city to another. So, because he had a job transfer. So he inquired with his new friends and saying that, okay, my son wants to continue learning his flute. So can you tell me where is the best flute teacher available? So somebody said, there's a flute teacher over here. So he went there to meet the flute teacher. And he was quite surprised. Outside the board, outside his house, there was a small board kept and saying that if you are a fresh student, I'll repeat it, if you are a fresh student, then the charges is 500 rupees a month. But if you already learned and you're coming here to continue your flute studies, then the charges is 5,000 rupees. This man thought, am I reading something wrong? So since my student, my son has already learned flute, he should be charged less. He went inside, he spoke to the great flute teacher and said, sir, I think your board says something wrong. Am I right by saying that, it should be the other way around? He said, no, it is right. A person who doesn't know anything, it's very easy to teach that particular person. But a person who already has learned, I have to put 10 times the effort to unlearn what he already knows. Because he may think that, oh, my guru doesn't know, I know. Sometimes students actually start teaching their teachers. Knowledge always flows from top to bottom, not bottom to top. Of course, today there is reverse mentoring. Younger children also can teach many things about new areas like technology to the elders. That's a different story. But wisdom always comes with experience. So take the best of training. You know, I've been a trainer, I've been a strategy consultant. I've seen this in companies. Training is the last thing that we give in corporates. Maybe, when something goes wrong, training is the first thing that, the budget is not cut off. I understand, it is not the top priority, but for Chanakya, it is the top priority. And it's important, because if you're sending somebody to sail in, stormy waters, in the storm, you should know how to actually work with the wind and the sails. So in difficult situations, please get training, and even in good situations, get training. So training is eternal. It is not whether should I. It is whether if I don't get trained. I remember this friend of mine who was an HR professional, and he was asked by his boss, saying that, what if I train my staff and they leave? It usually happens. Some people just put a lot of effort, money, time, and then finally he or she decides to leave. So, his boss asked him, what if I train and they leave? And the HR manager said, the question is reverse. What if you don't train them and they stay? Okay. So that's the importance of training. Training is continuous. And those people who are learning, unlearning, and continuously learning actually later on become very successful in life. Your past knowledge, please leave it to the past. Your future knowledge is about continuous education. Friends, there is no age for learning, and learning till you die. Chanakya was a teacher, and his wisdom that is documented is still helping us even today. So, friends, that's Corporate Chanakya. I've been very fortunate to just tell you a little bit of a history about this particular book. It was released on 15th of August, our Independence Day, in the year 2010. It's 2020, exactly 10 years from today. It actually was released in the University of Mumbai, and we had more than 350 top guys of the corporate world. We never thought. It was a Sunday, I remember, whether people will turn up, but it was jam-packed in the Mumbai University. The Vice Chancellor then, Rajan Velukar. Then we had Ajit Ranade, Dr. Ajit Ranade, the Aditya Birla Group. And of course, there was this group called MTHR Global, more than HR Global. My friends over there, and all my close dear friends, my family, they all organized, and it was the launch of mine. But I never knew, this book is going to actually turn around. Just as we are talking about this book, I want to tell you, this book has been brought into more than 50 reprints. I'm only talking about English language. It has been translated into 10 Indian languages, right, from Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Assami, Oriya, Bengali, Telugu, yeah, you just go on and on. Sometimes it is being turned around into an audiobook also. We have made a film on it. Shemaru actually made a film on based on this particular book. It is called Chanakya Speaks. You can Google it. Chanakya Speaks. We made a movie out of it. All that we will talk about later on. But even after 10 years, the book is actually doing very well. It is still as one of the most recommended books and must-read books in today's times, especially in the field of management. So, friends, do read this book. I'll just tell you one emotional incident with this particular book. Uh, 2010 has been a turnaround for me in many years. If you believe in astrology, if you believe in the right timing, 2010 almost a lot of things changed in my life. The first thing is that I became a father of a daughter. So I became a father at 2000, in the year 2010. I joined the University of Mumbai thanks to the whole university officials and my PhD guy, Dr. Shubda Joshi. And of course, my friend, Ranjit, who has been part of my Chanakya journey, Ranjit Shetty. And then, of course, the same year, Dr. Chanakya was born, I would say. And, the emotional incident which I want to share with all of you was the day the book was released and it was given in my hands. My daughter was already born at that particular time. She was born in June, and this book was in August. The moment I got the first copy of the book, a lot of you authors will know this. I felt actually, I'm holding my baby in my hands. The baby has grown big. It has become very successful. I've seen it in, airports to railway stations, and of course, I've seen the pirated copies also. But it's a joy to see your first book becoming successful. It's an honor. I definitely would not take all the credit. It is definitely Guru Kripa. The first page starts with dedicating my book to Swami Chinmayananji, my guru, my teacher. So it says, this book is dedicated to my Gurudev Swami Chinmayananji, who inspired me to study our ancient scriptures that offer solutions to all our modern day problems. My publisher is Jaco. The distribution is amazing. I have spoken to hundreds of booksellers who have promoted this particular book. Thousands of people who actually have read this book, gifted these books to others. And one of the important things is that our Prime Minister Narendra Modi actually called me to have a discussion on this particular book. If you go to my Facebook page and my Facebook account, you will see my photograph with Narendra Modi and this particular book. So it's taken me places. It's taken me to 22 countries. It's given me what I am. Whatever I am, people still recognize me as Radhakrishnan Pillai of Corporate Chanakya. So that's my first book. But friends, we are not going to wind up by telling that we are only going to stop here with one book. Every day there's going to be one book. So tomorrow we are actually going to take up the second book, and the second book is called Chanakya: Seven Secrets of Leadership. I'll repeat it. So we are going sequentially to 2010, and the next book that was released, it's called Corporate Chanakya to Chanakya: Seven Secrets of Leadership. So that was the first book that I actually co-authored with D. Shivanandan, who was the Director General of Maharashtra Police, and he was the Commissioner of Mumbai Police, also DGP, Director General. I found that he is actually a real Chanakya. I'll talk about him a little bit later tomorrow in detail, but just to tell you, he's such a role model. What a fantastic cop. He cleaned up the Mumbai underworld. And there's a movie also made on him when he was a joint CP crime, Commissioner of Police crime, when Mumbai wasn't in great shape. And that movie is called Company. Some of you must have seen it. So please do watch the movie Company if possible today before you come, or maybe tomorrow morning before you see it, so you'll understand it better. So in that particular book, we are talking about the Saptanga model. Okay, so friends, we will talk about that later on. But till then, okay, please read Corporate Chanakya. Corporate Chanakya is very easy to read. Every chapter only takes you 3 minutes to read. You can talk, you can debate, you can discuss. Today, we're not going to take up any questions because today was more an introduction session. But if you have any questions, please do keep posting us on Facebook or on Instagram. And we'll be collecting all the questions and make sure that we're trying to answer most of them, if not all of them, but I'll definitely try and answer. But please do send in your questions, your comments, and this video will be there on online platform. Please do share it, refer to it. Please save it also, because you never know, all these lectures can be useful later on in your personal life or your professional life. So please share this with your company colleagues, with your office colleagues. And of course, Corporate Chanakya has been also gifted by many people. The bosses gifting it to their subordinate, gifting to their bosses. It's an amazing book, how to get interviewed. Yeah, that's first time in your job when you're getting interviewed. So how to get interviews of others, because later on when you become a boss, you have to interview others also. So it is a journey, right, from being the starting point of your career in a company, the management field, to the exit point. And the training of a king also says, before you enter, you plan your exit. Nobody is going to be permanent in any particular company. You should retire, you should plan your retirement also. Chanakya says, before you enter, plan your exit. So before you enter your corporate world itself, you should plan your retirement. But that doesn't mean retire with a useless company, a shutdown company. Retire with a plan of creating an institution. Chanakya created a great institution, a country called Bharat. He created leaders, and he himself was a great strategic thinker. Tomorrow we'll see the Saptanga model, an amazing strategic model that is used even today. And we do a lot of training programs on that. So we'll introduce you to the next book of Chanakya tomorrow, that is Chanakya's 7 Secrets of Leadership. As we are winding up, I'm going to actually tell you one story. Again, the Chandragupta Chanakya story. Many times when people become leaders, they think that, I don't require any guidance. And it so happened that Chanakya created Chandragupta Maurya, and Chandragupta Maurya had good advisors and bad advisors. It's a part of the game. It's not that always have good advisors. So all these people started saying that you know what, Chanakya is actually running the kingdom, and you're only a Katputli, a puppet in the hands of Chanakya. Chandragupta temporarily fell into that particular trap, and he stopped taking advice from Chanakya. Chanakya understood it. He came to Chandragupta Maurya one day and said, "Oh, you don't want my advice. It's okay. That's fine. But I just want to tell you, before I made you a king, I made sure I had a backup for you. So I know that if the king is not trainable, the king thinks that he's all powerful, he needs to be replaced. So before I made you a king, I already have a backup plan for you. But I have a question. Do you have a better advisor than me? Do you have a backup plan for me? Because advisors should be better than the king. If you have found somebody better, I'll be the most happiest. So never take leadership for granted. Great leaders are made because of great teachers. I repeat it. Great leaders are made because of great teachers, And we are exploring Chanakya, one of the greatest teachers who lived in this particular planet. And we will keep exploring him more and more in the future session. Thank you so much. This is Radhakrishnan Pillai signing off with the first book, Corporate Chanakya.